Welcome back to the Quarterly Call. All content discussed here is for informational purposes and is not investment advice. Please consult with a qualified professional before making any investment decisions. Ready for another deep dive? This time, we're focusing on Tesla, and specifically their Q3 2024 performance. We've got all the numbers from their earnings report and some really interesting highlights from the earnings call.
Yeah, it is a pretty fascinating look at where Tesla sits in the EV market right now. Globally, the automotive industry has been facing some pretty tough challenges, but Tesla still managed to, pull off record deliveries for Q3.
They do.
And it was their second highest quarter ever for regulatory credit revenues. And, here's the big thing. They're profitable. No other EV company, at least not right now, can say that.
It's true. And we're not just talking about like the newer EV companies either. The established automakers, the ones that have entire divisions dedicated to electric vehicles, they're having a hard time making a profit in this market. So what's Tesla doing differently? What's their secret sauce?
Well, there are a few things, I think. For one, they're really focused on vertical integration. They control a big chunk of their supply chain, which means they can manage costs and innovation better than, say, a traditional manufacturer that relies on a ton of outside suppliers. And in a market that's all over the place, that kind of control, that can be a huge advantage.
So they're not just playing the game, they're like rewrite the rules.
Right. And they're playing the long game, too. Elon Musk, Tesla's CEO, he's predicting 20% to 30% growth in vehicle deliveries just for next year, for 2025.
Wow.
And that prediction, it's based on two main things. New, more affordable models coming out, and the constant progress they're making with their autonomous driving tech, which is generating a lot of buzz.
It is. And it's interesting, even though Musk did like throw in those usual warnings about, the whole macroeconomic situation, it's still clear that Tesla, they think they're in a great position to keep growing. And speaking of things in a great position, have you seen what they're doing with Optimus, their humanoid robot? It looks like they've made some serious progress, especially after that We Robot event they just had.
Oh, yeah. The progress with Optimus has been amazing. Seriously, you had people watching robots serving drinks, like moving through the crowd. It was pretty wild.
That's amazing.
But you know what the biggest development was? They came out with this next-gen hand. It's got like 22 degrees of freedom, which is double what the old one had. And it's got, get this, human-like tactile sensing.
Wow, so they're really serious about robots like having a real impact soon.
Yeah.
I mean, they even said Optimus could like eventually become their most valuable product.
It's a bold statement, no doubt, but when you think about everything this technology could do, it's not that crazy. We can have robots doing all sorts of tasks, with more and more skill and precision. Think about manufacturing, logistics, even healthcare. The possibilities are huge. And then when you add Tesla's AI to the mix, well, things get really interesting.
It's a powerful combination, that's for sure. Makes you wonder what else they've got up their sleeve. But we can talk about robots later. Right now, let's talk about something Tesla's already making waves with. Their full self-driving technology, or FSD.
Yeah, FSD is becoming less of a future thing and more of a now thing. Tesla's internal safety report, it shows their autopilot system. Right now, it's already 10 times safer than the average U.S. driver. One accident for every 700,000 miles driven.
That's pretty impressive.
Right. And with FSD versions 12.5 and 13, they're rolling out, we're seeing some major improvements, things like better highway driving and, autonomous parking lot navigation, all thanks to their actually smart summon feature, which they said has been used over 1 billion times already.
Actually, smart summon. I love that name. But joking aside, Tesla's goal here is serious. They actually think their FSD will be safer than human drivers by Q2 2025.
Yeah.
And that's not some cautious estimate. It's a real internal projection they're making based on how fast their technology is developing.
They're really going for it. They're projecting 3 orders of magnitude improvement in miles between interventions just this year. If they hit that, well, it could change everything about how we think about transportation safety.
That's huge. And it's not just about safety, right? Apparently, there's already a ride-hailing service using FSD, and Tesla employees in the Bay Area are using it. They're talking about opening it up to the public in California and Texas next year, if they can get the regulators on board.
It's a big deal, because Tesla's not just making cars anymore. They're trying to become a full-on transportation service provider. And if they can get past the whole regulatory hurdle, well, they could disrupt a massive industry just like they've done with the auto market.
It's classic Tesla. They see what's coming, they see the future trends, and then they actually do something about it. They get out ahead of everyone else. And speaking of future trends, we've got to talk about the Cybercab. I
Yes.
mean, this thing, it's designed from the ground up for autonomous ride-hailing, no steering wheel, no pedals, nothing.
It's really something, isn't it? The Cybercab, it's a pure vision of autonomous transportation. But you know what's even more impressive? How they're building it. Musk called their production process a revolution in manufacturing efficiency. They're expecting production to be way faster than traditional car lines, all because of the innovations they've come up with.
It's like that quote from Musk, remember? The hardest Tesla product to copy will be the foundry.
Mhm.
Seems like the Cybercab is the perfect example of that idea. And they're saying it'll be priced around $25,000. So they're not just going for the luxury market. They want to make autonomous EV tech something everyone can afford.
It's a really cool mix. You have the big vision, the cutting edge tech, and this commitment to making these advancements something everyone can have access to.
It definitely shows they're not afraid to shake things up a little or a lot, actually. But let's step back for a second. Big picture. What do you think are the biggest implications of all these developments at Tesla, both for the company itself and for the world in general?
Well, I think what's really interesting is how Tesla's approaching all of this. They're not just developing individual technologies, they're weaving them all together, building this whole reimagined transportation system. They're pushing boundaries in all these different areas at the same time. And sure, they have their critics, but you can't deny that their willingness to take risks, to challenge the way we think about things, that's what makes them so fascinating.
It's a story that's definitely still being written, and we're all waiting to see where it goes next.
Yeah.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to look at Tesla's move into the energy sector. From their Powerwall home batteries to the Megapack for utility-scale projects, they're really changing the game when it comes to how we generate and use energy.
Yeah, Tesla's energy generation and storage business is a big part of their mission, to get the world using sustainable energy. It's not just electric cars, they're building the whole infrastructure to support them. That's a key piece of the whole thing.
So next, we're going to take a deeper dive into the specifics of Tesla's energy business. We'll look at the challenges and opportunities they're facing in that market.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the bigger implications, like how all of this might affect the environment, the economy, and even our daily lives. Stick around, we've got a lot more to cover in our Tesla deep dive. So, Tesla's energy solutions, they're a great example of that whole vertical integration thing they're doing. Just like their cars, they want to be in control, like from start to finish. Battery cell production to, the software that manages it all.
It's that owning the whole stack idea they're always talking about.
Yeah.
What advantages does that give them in the energy market, though?
Well, it lets them move fast. They can react to changes in the market much quicker than companies that have to rely on a bunch of outside suppliers. And that kind of agility, that's huge in a field like renewable energy where things are always changing, new tech coming out all the time.
So are they basically betting on being able to outmaneuver the competition, like just through speed and flexibility?
Yeah, kind of. But it's not just speed, it's control too. They get to control every step from the raw materials all the way to the finished product. That way they can guarantee quality, be as efficient as possible, and really drive down costs. Plus, they can roll out any innovations they come up with across the whole system much easier.
Makes sense. It's like if you own all the puzzle pieces, you can put them together however you want. But let's get specific. We know Tesla's making the Powerwall for homes and the Megapack for like utility scale projects.
Yeah.
How does each of those fit into their overall energy strategy?
Well, the Powerwall, that's all about giving homeowners more control over their energy, making them more independent. You pair that with solar panels, they can store energy they generate during the day, use it at night, and rely less on the grid.
Oh, interesting.
Not only does that save them money, but it also makes the whole energy system tougher, especially in areas where power outages happen a lot.
So it's like giving individuals more power, literally, and making the grid more resilient and less centralized.
Exactly. And then you've got the Megapack, which is for like way bigger applications. We're talking utility scale energy storage, stuff that can power entire neighborhoods, maybe even small towns. They're using Megapacks all over the world to, help integrate renewable energy sources, things like solar and wind power.
And they're really ramping up production, too. That Lathrop mega factory in California that's already churning out 200 megapacks a week, and they're adding another factory in Shanghai soon.
Yeah, they're serious about this, and they're not stopping there.
Yeah.
Tesla's goal is to get to terawatt-hour scale with their battery production. That would be a huge chunk of the world's total energy storage capacity. They really believe batteries are the key to a sustainable energy future.
It's a pretty ambitious vision, and one that could completely change how we think about energy. But hold on, Let's shift gears a little. While vertical integration has its advantages, it's got to have some downsides too, right? What are some of the potential risks or challenges they might face?
Well, one challenge is just the complexity of managing such a massive operation. Any hiccup in the supply chain, whether it's a natural disaster or some political thing or just plain inefficiency, it can mess up the whole system.
So they're more vulnerable if something goes wrong in one part of the chain?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a trade-off. They get control and efficiency, but they also put all their eggs in one basket, so to speak. And then there's the expertise they need. They can't just be good at making cars and batteries. They need to know about battery chemistry, software development, energy management, all sorts of
It's
things.
like they're running, what, like 5 cutting-edge companies at once?
Yeah, something like that. And that means finding and keeping the right people in such a competitive environment. That's a constant challenge. And then, of course, there's the competition.
Right, right.
Tesla's not the only one playing in the EV and renewable energy space. The established automakers are catching up, and there are all these new EV startups popping up. It's getting crowded.
So how do they stay ahead in a field that's, getting more competitive all the time?
I think their main advantage is their brand. Tesla, it's become synonymous with innovation and the future. People are excited about their products, and they've built a really loyal following. It's not just people who buy their cars, it's people who believe in what they're doing.
It's like they're not just a car company. They're more like a tech company that makes cars.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful position to be in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they've gotten there by consistently delivering groundbreaking products and pushing the limits of what's possible. But there's another thing they have that often gets overlooked, that supercharger network. It's a game changer for Tesla owners.
Yeah.
It's reliable, it's convenient, and most other EV charging networks just can't compare.
Oh, yeah. The supercharger network is huge, and it gets more valuable every day as more and more EVs hit the road. It solves a big problem for people thinking about buying an EV, that whole range anxiety thing. Knowing they can charge up quickly and easily on long trips, that gives Tesla a leg up on the competition, who are still trying to catch up with their own charging infrastructure.
It's not just the tech, it's the whole ecosystem they've built around it. The cars, the software, the chargers, it all works together. It's hard to beat that.
It really is. It shows how they think. They're not just selling cars, they're selling this whole vision of the future. Transportation that's electric, autonomous, and part of a sustainable energy system.
It's a vision that a lot of people are buying into, and it's definitely fueling their growth. But, even with all their strengths, they've got some big hurdles to clear. We talked about competition, but there's also the whole regulatory landscape, especially when it comes to self-driving cars.
Yeah, dealing with regulations, it's always tricky for companies that are disrupting things, especially when it comes to safety, like with self-driving cars.
Right, and you've got different countries, different regions, all with their own approaches. And Tesla, they've often butted heads with regulators, because they tend to push the technology first and worry about regulations later.
It's that Silicon Valley move fast and break things mentality. But that doesn't always work in industries where safety and public trust are so important.
It's a tough balance, trying to push innovation while making sure things are developed responsibly. And then there's how the public sees all of this. A lot of people are excited about self-driving cars and robots, but some are worried about jobs disappearing, safety risks, and all the ethical questions that come with these new technologies.
It's really important for Tesla and anyone developing these technologies to be open and honest with the public about those concerns. You have to be transparent, educate people, and be willing to talk about the potential downsides. That's how you build trust and make sure these innovations actually benefit everyone.
It's not just about the technology itself. It's about how it fits into our lives, how we choose to use it as a society. But before we get into those bigger questions, let's take a look at how Tesla's doing financially. We know they're the only EV company making money right now, but how long can they keep that up? What factors might affect their profitability in the coming years?
Yeah, when you look at Tesla's Q3 earnings, it's a pretty interesting picture. They're doing well, no question. Record deliveries, good profit margins, but you can't ignore what's happening in the market as a whole.
Right. The auto industry, it's always been up and down, and there's a lot of talk about a possible economic slowdown, plus those ongoing supply chain issues. So how is Tesla going to handle all of that? How do they keep things going if the economy takes a hit?
That's the million-dollar question. They're making money now, which is great, but staying profitable when things get rough, that's going to be the real test. A lot depends on whether they can keep bringing production costs down, especially as they start making more of those new models like the Cybertruck and those more affordable cars they've been hinting at.
So it's like They need to scale up production, but keep everything efficient and profitable at the same time. Not easy.
Exactly. And then you've got the competition breathing down their necks. The big car companies, they're finally getting serious about EVs, and they've got tons of money and, decades of experience building cars. Can Tesla hold them off and keep their market share?
It's a tough fight for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just the traditional car companies, right? You've got all these EV startups trying to get a piece of the action too. So what are Tesla's advantages? What do they have that the others don't?
I think their biggest asset is their brand. Tesla's become like the symbol of innovation and, this vision of the future. They've got a loyal following. It's more than just customers, it's like a whole community.
It's true. It feels like they're not just a car company, but a tech company that happens to make cars. That's got to be a good position to be in.
Absolutely. And they've built that reputation by delivering, by coming out with products that are truly groundbreaking and just constantly pushing the limits of what's possible.
But they've got something else too, something that often gets overlooked. That supercharger network they've built. It's a huge advantage for Tesla owners. It's convenient, it's reliable, and most other EV charging networks, they just can't compete.
Oh, yeah. The supercharger network is a big deal. And it's only going to become more important as more EVs hit the road. It solves a major concern for anyone thinking about buying an EV range anxiety. You can charge up quickly and easily, even on a long trip. That gives Tesla a huge edge over competitors who are still scrambling to build their own charging infrastructure.
It's not just about the technology. It's about the whole package. The cars, the software, the chargers, it all works together. It's a complete system. And that's hard to replicate.
Yeah, it really is. It shows how they think. They're not just selling cars, they're selling a whole vision of the future. A future with electric, autonomous transportation, all tied into a sustainable energy system.
It's a vision that a lot of people find really compelling, and it's a big part of why they're so successful. But let's circle back to something we talked about earlier. The bigger implications of all this. What does Tesla's innovation mean for the future of transportation and technology?
That's the big question, isn't it? Tesla's impact goes way beyond just selling cars or batteries. They're making the entire auto industry switch to electric vehicles faster. They're pushing the limits of self-driving technology, and they're making everyone rethink how we make and use energy.
They're like a force for change, pushing the whole world in a new direction.
Exactly. And whether or not Tesla hits all their ambitious goals, you can't deny they've already had a huge impact. They've raised the bar, set a new standard, and made everyone realize that things can be different.
That's an incredible achievement. They've shown everyone that if you have a bold vision and you're willing to work hard to make it happen, you can really change the world. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Tesla, what are your key takeaways? What should our listeners be thinking about as they, try to understand the future of this company and the industries it's disrupting?
I think the main takeaway is that the future is not set in stone. It's being created right now by companies like Tesla who are willing to challenge the way things are and push the limits of what's possible. Tesla's story shows us that innovation can come from unexpected places, and that the people who are willing to take risks and think differently, they can have a huge impact on the world.
That's a really inspiring message, and one that I think resonates with anyone who's, curious about the future and excited to see what happens next. So as we close out our deep dive, I want to encourage our listeners to stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged. The future isn't something that just happens, it's something we all create together.
Thanks so much for listening to The Quarterly Call. If you enjoyed it, make sure to rate and follow our show. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.